Hey friends, what's going on? This is Georgie and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about books. And right here, I have a pile of 6 books that I've read pretty recently and that I wanted to share with you guys. So reading has always been a pretty important part of my life. Since I was very young, I enjoyed reading stories, and then as I grew a little more, I remember I became a huge fan of the Harry Potter books and fantasy novels, and I always enjoyed literature. So it's just sort of like always followed me in different stages of my life. And I mean, I guess the genre of the book that I read changes from time to time, but what I think is something fundamental is like feeding my brain with, you know, stories, different subjects, just knowledge and wisdom from the authors that write these books. In the past year or two, I really picked up on this habit again, which, you know, sometimes it like goes on and off from time to time. I try to, let's say, finish a book every 2 months, let's say, because I used to like start a book and then put it down and then pick it back up, and sometimes my brain just went off into like a completely different train of thought or a completely different mindset, and I would forget what I was reading. So I try to be consistent and honor the books that I'm reading. So let's get started with these 6 recommendations that I have for you today. Okay, so the first one is this right here. It's a book called Siddhartha, and this is a little bit more on the spiritual side. The story about this guy that, you know, gives up on like a lot of his things in his life, and he decides to go on this like very intense like spiritual journey to find like enlightenment and more clarity. And a lot of things happen, which I really recommend. It's a short book, and you know, he goes into the jungle with his friend and then like finds Buddha, and then like, I don't want to spoil it, but it's just like a very like lighthearted and just very beautiful book. The way it's written had me captivated the entire time, and I even cried in one of the chapters. And it's one of the few books that have made me cry, but it's just like it's such a cute book, and I don't know if cute is a word to describe it, but I enjoyed it so much. And if you guys are interested in this subject, or if you're in a personal quest of finding more about yourself and like personal growth, definitely recommend Siddhartha. The next book is this one, and it's called The Book of Tea. And this book I read because of another book that I'm going to recommend in a bit. It's a very like poetic, it's very like poetically written, and it pretty much talks about like how tea is a tradition in the Japanese culture. It's a book that's meant to be read out loud, and while I was reading this, I did do some reading out loud, and I did like read it while I was drinking tea, and it sort of like, what am I trying to say here? It sort of made me understand the tradition a little better. Since I've been a tea drinker for quite some time now, it was really neat to just, you know, and understand more about the beauty, simplicity, and the Zen aesthetic. There is a chapter in here that was actually one of my favorites, and it was, let me just find it really quick. So it's on flowers. So it pretty much like, you know, since most teas come from herbs or flowers, it just kind of like describes flowers in a very like beautiful and poetic way. And there's this like reference that says how a blossom like is similar to a sailboat. Like once it like flies off into the air and like lands in a stream or a river, it just like sails away. And just reading that part just was like, I don't know, it made me appreciate flowers in a completely like different way. So if you're into like tea, like, you know, soft and like calming readings, this is definitely the book for you. Up next is this one, titled The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire, by one of my favorite authors in the like self-help like book realm. And this guy is Deepak Chopra. He's a best-selling author, and I've read a couple of his books, and I have to say that they're all really good, but this one is my personal favorite. This one in particular I've read 3 times. As you can see, it's a little beat up and it's one of my favorite books. Why? Because I feel like this book is, well, it's very much focused on like spirituality, and it gives you meditation techniques, and the main subject and focus of this book is like synchronicity and synchrodestiny. So what I learned from this one was how to manifest the life that I want. And just if you guys are looking for something to give you a little bit of hope and just a different view and perspective on life, I recommend this one. Like I said, it's a lot on like synchronicities and how like everything that happens for a reason, and everything's a message. And yeah, it's definitely a book that makes you more like, I guess, like aware and present, and it's really easy to read and understand. And I love this book so much. Definitely recommend it. So the 4th book that I'm going to recommend, and it's actually the latest one I finished, is this one, How to Be a Stoic, Using Ancient Philosophy to Live a Modern Life. So this book is a completely philosophical book, and I am not like an expert on philosophy. I barely like, you know, scratch the surface into the philosophy world, but this book was super helpful for me because it sort of gives you the tools. I mean, not sort of, it does give you the tools on how to, like it says, live a more like stoic life. It talks about a lot of subjects such as like anxiety, dealing with anger, dealing with like life situations. And how I would like summarize stoicism, I think that's how you pronounce it, is to like live a more lighthearted life, which isn't necessarily like an indifferent way of living, but like a life where you sort of like take situations with a grain of salt and don't let anything like overwhelm you, and using like wisdom and knowledge and reasoning to face situations. Since I have dealt with anxiety and depression and all these things in my past, I think that having tools such as like these kinds of books, therapy, a spiritual side, a healthy and good group of friends and family is super important to like not fall back on these, you know, crappy feelings. One part that I want to share with you guys, and something I want to work on, is that this book, there's a part where it says that conversations shouldn't be focused around talking on other people that aren't present or gossip. And due to the culture and the upbringing which I pertain, it's something that is so difficult, right? With social media and celebrities and chisme and this and that. This was something that really just like kind of hit me when I was reading it, because I was like reflecting and thinking like how much of our time and energy is spent in talking about others when we could be, you know, talking about each other in a more philosophical and like wise way. And like I said, I'm not a philosophy expert by all means, but I do want to dive deeper into this subject. It's something that I'm very drawn by. seems like a great way of living, and I'm here for it. I'm very, very much here for it. So if you guys are into philosophy and Stoicism, great book. Great book. Up next, and the fifth book that I'm going to be recommending today is another one of my favorites, and this is a book that I love so much, and it is Wabi-Sabi. This book is called Wabi-Sabi for artists, designers, poets, and philosophers. Pretty much what Wabi-Sabi is, I don't want to like butcher at all the meaning because it's very special to some people, including to myself, so I'm just going to read the back. It says, Wabi-Sabi is a quintessential Japanese aesthetic. There's like a Japanese pattern appreciation going on in my books now that I noticed, but it says, Wabi-Sabi is a quintessential Japanese aesthetic. It is a beauty of things imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is a beauty of things modest and humble. It is a beauty of things unconventional. So yeah, this book, I mean, I am a designer and aesthetics are a big part of my life. So understanding this kind of aesthetic and this kind of philosophy really changed my entire style. I mean, there's parts of the book where they're just pictures and it teaches you how to appreciate, you know, like a crumpled up leaf that's lying in a park and the contrast that it has with the brick floor, and you know, it's a really deep appreciation towards beauty and just nature and, you know, things imperfect. There's a really cool chapter that it gives you the differences between modernism and Wabi-Sabi, which was interesting for me because I feel like my style is sort of in between. I do appreciate modernism, but Wabi-Sabi is something I aspire to be more like. This book is super cool. I've also read it like 3 or 4 times, and I always recommend it to anyone who's looking to just simplify their life a little more and appreciate the little and beautiful things in this life. So yeah, this is a great book, and I definitely recommend it. It's super short, and I'm positive you're going to enjoy it very much. Last but not least, and the 6th book that I want to recommend to you today is this one. And this book is called Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Choinard. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but that's okay. This book was gifted to me by a very dear friend. She thought that I would like this book because I'm like sort of an adventurous guy. Not sort of, I am an adventurous guy, and I like doing things in very unconventional ways. So this book is a little bit about that. It tells you the story about how this guy funded Patagonia. He started off as like a climber and outdoorsy, like kayaker, rafter, camping, like super outdoorsy guy, and started making climbing equipment. And since he was just like so passionate, it had a very cool philosophy about life and respecting nature and having things be as sustainable as possible, and treating his employees and treating his people and his tribe with like so much respect. That sort of like gave him the foundation of how to start this business, and it became a very successful business. So I enjoyed reading this book a lot. It's got some really cool pictures of this guy's like journey, and just really cool to see how such a successful company started. And it talks about like production philosophy, distribution philosophy, his story, financial philosophy, just kind of like the campaigns that they've had. Like, look how beautiful this postcard right here is. And yeah, really good book. It's more of like a autobiographical story, not so much like on the spiritual side like these ones, but there is also like a nature appreciation aspect to this. So if you guys are into that stuff, I recommend this book a lot. And yeah, this was the last one from my list of books that I recommend. Something that I like about reading books as an adult, and something that I sort of think of while I'm reading is that we can now like choose what information we absorb, right? When we were back in school, or if you're still in school, maybe sometimes you were assigned specific books or subjects or like literature that maybe you weren't so interested in. So what I do recommend is that you guys go out and find like an author or a genre that you're interested in. These are, like I said, books that resonate with my life and my view towards the world. They might change a little bit in a few years, but yeah, as of right now, they're the ones that like really inspire me and just like fill my heart with joy and it's inspiration and information. So if you're looking for a good read, I can strongly stand behind each and every one of these books. Okay, you guys, so that was it for this video. I hoped you enjoyed my little review and recommendation on these books. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting this channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.